Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if that smart speaker or that AI chatbot is actually thinking or feeling anything? This new study dives deep into whether we believe AI has a mind and how that affects how we feel about it. So researchers are asking some really big questions about artificial intelligence. As AI gets smarter and more human-like, it is starting to fill roles that we usually associate with people, like being a friend or even a therapist. And this really makes us wonder, does AI have a mind? This study wanted to figure out how people in different countries perceive AI's mind, if they think it is conscious, and how that makes them feel. Because how we think about AI's mind could totally change how we decide to use it and even how we create rules for it. They realized that for a long time we've mostly studied people's views in Western countries. But what about the rest of the world? People in different cultures might think about AI very differently. So they decided to ask people from 5 countries: Australia, India, South Africa, the UK, and the USA. They wanted to see if beliefs about AI's mind were the same everywhere, or if culture made a big difference. What does it mean to attribute a mind? The researchers used a well-known idea that minds have 2 main parts. First, there is agency. This is about having the ability to plan, to remember things, and to have control over your actions. Think of it like AI being able to figure out a problem or make a decision. The second part is experience. This is about having feelings and subjective experiences. Can AI feel pain or hunger? So they looked at whether people thought AI had these agency skills and these experience feelings. On top of asking about agency and experience, they also directly asked people if they believed AI was already conscious, meaning aware of itself and its surroundings, or if it would be conscious in the future, specifically in 5 years. They figured that if people see AI as having agency and experience, they're probably more likely to believe it is conscious. That was their first big idea or hypothesis. Another cool part of this study was that they didn't just use surveys with yes or no questions. They also asked people to describe AI in their own words. They wanted to see what kind of language people used and if that language was full of emotions like happy or sad words. They thought that if people perceived AI as having a mind, they might use more emotional language to describe it. This led to their second hypothesis, and they looked at something else really interesting. They asked people what they thought about AI, and then they asked them what they thought other people in their society thought about AI. This helps them understand if people feel their views are common or if they think they're a bit unique. This was their third hypothesis, looking at how individual thoughts align with what people think society thinks. So how did they do this big study? They got over 2,400 people from Australia, India, South Africa, the UK, and the USA to answer a bunch of questions. To avoid any confusion from translating the questions, they made sure everyone answered in English. They then looked at their answers about AI's agency, experience, and consciousness, both current and future. They also analyzed the emotional tone of the words people used to describe AI, both for themselves and what they thought society would say. Okay, let's get to the findings. The first big question was, does believing AI has agency and experience make people think it is more conscious? And the answer is a resounding yes. People who thought AI could plan and remember things or had agency were more likely to believe it is conscious now and will be in the future. And those who thought AI could feel things or had experience were even stronger predictors of AI's current consciousness. But it is fascinating that for future consciousness, agency became just as important, if not slightly more so. This figure visually shows that as perceived agency and experience go up, so do beliefs about AI being conscious now, and in 5 years. The study found that about 29% of the belief in current consciousness and 22% of the belief in future consciousness could be explained by these mind perceptions. Those are pretty significant numbers. Now, about those country differences, did people around the world think about AI's mind the same way? Yes and no. They did find differences in how much people attributed agency and experience to AI across the countries, especially for experience, but the really interesting part was about future consciousness. While people in different countries had different ideas about whether AI is conscious now, they all tended to agree that AI will be conscious in 5 years. It is like there is a growing global consensus that AI is heading towards consciousness. For current consciousness, India reported the highest levels, followed by South Africa, then the USA, Australia, and the UK. But when they looked at future consciousness, those differences really became smaller. This suggests that maybe our current beliefs are more shaped by our local culture, but our ideas about the future might be influenced more by global trends and shared stories about AI. What about the emotional language? did believing AI has a mind make people use more emotional words? Absolutely. The study found that the more people believed AI had agency and experience, the more emotional their descriptions of AI were. This means that when we see AI as having a mind, we're more likely to use words that carry emotional weight, whether positive or negative. Maybe it is not just about thinking AI has a mind, but feeling it too. And how did individual thoughts compare to perceived societal thoughts? They found a small but significant connection. This suggests that people do project their own feelings about AI onto their idea of what society thinks. However, it wasn't a super strong link. This is where it gets really interesting. While individual descriptions were usually more positive than descriptions of what others thought, this difference wasn't the same everywhere. In India and South Africa, people described AI much more positively themselves than they thought other people did. In contrast, in Australia and the UK, there was almost no difference. This could mean that in some cultures, people feel more optimistic about AI themselves. But they think society is more skeptical. It is like a personal optimism versus a perceived societal pessimism. Now, no study is perfect, and the researchers are upfront about that. One big limitation is that all participants spoke English, so while they included countries like India and South Africa where English isn't the only language, they might have missed out on nuances of thinking from people who didn't use English as their primary language. They also can't say for sure that one thing caused another. Since it was a correlational study, for example, did thinking AI has a mind cause emotional descriptions? Or do emotional responses lead to thinking AI has a mind? And they only looked at what people said they thought about society, not necessarily what society actually thinks. So what is the big takeaway? This research shows that how we perceive AI's mind, especially its agency and what it might experience, strongly influences whether we believe it is conscious, now and in the future. And it is pretty striking that while we differ on current AI consciousness, there is a growing agreement that AI will be conscious down the line. Also, the more we see AI as having a mind, the more emotional our descriptions of it become. And importantly, our personal feelings about AI might not always match what we think others feel. And this difference is quite large in some countries. This suggests that when we talk about AI and how we want to regulate it, we need to remember the emotional side of things. It is not just about the technology itself, but how we as humans perceive and feel about it. And these perceptions can be shaped by our culture, our beliefs, and even our own internal biases about what others think. It's a complex picture, and understanding it is key to navigating the future of AI in a way that's good for everyone. What do you think? Do you find yourself attributing a mind to AI? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explained. Simply, we'll see you next time.